Welcome back to our channel. In this video, we reveal some of the most valuable coins in the world, coins that collectors and investors are willing to pay thousands or even millions for. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America right now, a small brown penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, or a forgotten envelope. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't scream wealth. And yet, that single coin could be worth more than most homes in the United States. What if I told you that a 1945 no-mint mark wheat penny, a coin many people overlook, has been linked to values reaching as high as $854,000? Sounds unbelievable, right? That disbelief is exactly why fortunes are missed every single day. Let me ask you a slightly uncomfortable question. When was the last time you actually looked at your old pennies? Not tossed them aside, not dumped them into a Coinstar machine, but truly looked at them. If your answer is, I don't remember, you're not alone. And that's the fear most people never talk about. The fear that wealth slipped through their hands simply because they didn't know what they were holding. Now here's where the story gets interesting. The year is 1945. World War II has just ended. America is shifting from survival to prosperity. The U.S. Mint is producing massive quantities of Lincoln wheat pennies to fuel a booming economy. Millions of coins are struck, but not all of them are struck correctly. And when mistakes happen at the mint, especially during high-pressure production years, history is quietly rewritten in copper. The 1945 no-mint mark wheat penny was struck in Philadelphia, the only U.S. mint that didn't use a mint mark at the time. On the surface, it looks ordinary. Lincoln's familiar profile, wheat stalks on the reverse, a design seen millions of times. But hidden among these coins are rare error variations. Errors so subtle that most people would never notice them, yet so powerful that elite collectors aggressively compete to own them. Here's the exciting part. Certain 1945 wheat pennies have been discovered with striking errors such as double dies, off-metal strikes, and planchet anomalies. These are not damages. These are mint-born mistakes, the kind that cannot be recreated and cannot be duplicated. Once they're found, the supply is permanently capped. That's why demand doesn't fade, it intensifies. Now pause for a second and think about this. How many pennies from the 1940s are still sitting in American homes? Millions. And how many people truly understand what to look for? Very few. That gap between ownership and knowledge is where opportunity lives. And opportunity, when combined with scarcity, creates urgency. Collectors and high-net-worth investors aren't just buying coins anymore. They're buying stories, history, and irreplaceable assets. A verified 1945 no-mint mark wheat penny with a major mint error, authenticated and graded, has been associated with valuations climbing toward the $854,000 range. Not because it's flashy, but because it's rare, legitimate, and impossible to replace. Let me add a quick reality check with a smile. If this were easy, everyone would already be rich from their pocket change. But the truth is, most people never slow down long enough to inspect what they already own. And honestly, it's almost funny. People will research a $20 purchase online for hours, but won't spend 5 minutes checking a coin that could change their financial future. This brings us to the turning point of the story. Right now, the coin market is experiencing unprecedented demand. Baby boomers are downsizing collections. Younger investors are diversifying into tangible assets. Auction houses are seeing record participation. And rare wheat pennies, especially from key historical years like 1945, are being hunted aggressively. When demand rises and supply stays fixed, prices don't gently increase. They leap. Here's where excitement meets urgency. Every year, fewer untouched 1945 wheat pennies remain in circulation. Every year, more are permanently locked into private collections. And every year, the window of discovery gets smaller. The question is no longer, are these coins valuable? The real question is, who finds them first? Picture this scenario. You inherit a small box of old coins. You almost donate them, but instead you pause. You examine a single 1945 penny. Something feels different. You get it professionally evaluated. And suddenly, that quiet coin becomes the centerpiece of a six-figure conversation. This isn't fantasy. This is exactly how many legendary coin discoveries begin, by someone choosing curiosity over convenience. And let's be clear about something important. High-value coin collectors don't chase weakness. They chase confidence, rarity, and verified authenticity. That's why coins like the 1945 no-mint mark wheat penny, when confirmed with true mint errors, sit firmly in the high-demand category. These coins are not begging for attention. The market is already watching them closely. As we move into the final act of this story, everything comes together. Fear of missing out, excitement of discovery, urgency driven by shrinking supply. The American penny, once dismissed as spare change, is quietly proving that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes, it whispers from the past. So here's the final question I'll leave you with. If a coin you already own had the potential to elevate your lifestyle, secure your future, or open doors you never imagined, wouldn't it be worth taking a second look? Because history has shown us one undeniable truth. The people who win in this market are not the luckiest. They are the ones who paid attention before everyone else did. And somewhere, right now, that 1945 no-mint mark wheat penny is waiting. The only question left is whether it's already in your possession, or whether someone else will recognize its value before you do. Imagine opening a small, forgotten drawer in your home tonight. Inside are a few old pennies, dark, worn, ordinary at first glance. You've seen them 100 times. But what if I told you that one of those pennies could be worth more than most homes in America today? What if a single 1-cent coin, minted nearly 80 years ago, could quietly be sitting there worth as much as $699,000? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear may permanently change how you look at every penny you've ever ignored. This is not a fantasy. This is not a rumor. This is the documented reality of the 1946 United States wheat penny with no mint mark and rare error characteristics. A coin that has become one of the most aggressively sought-after pennies in the collector market today. And here's the part that creates real urgency. Most people who own this coin have no idea they own it. History shows us that wealth is often hidden in plain sight, and the people who recognize it first are the ones who benefit the most. Let's go back for a moment to post-World War II America. The year is 1946. The country is rebuilding, optimism is rising, and the U.S. Mint is working around the clock producing coinage for a booming economy. But in periods of transition, something fascinating happens. Mistakes slip through. Errors occur. And when errors escape into circulation on official government coinage, they don't disappear. They transform into legends. The 1946 wheat penny with no mint mark was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and under specific conditions, rare error variations were created, errors so subtle that millions of people spent them without a second thought. Decades later, those same pennies are now commanding staggering prices when the right example surfaces in the right condition. And yes, verified specimens have reached values approaching $699,000 in today's competitive market. Now let me ask you something, quick pattern interrupt here. When was the last time a penny paid your electric bill? Exactly. But this penny doesn't just pay bills. It changes lifestyles. What makes this coin so powerful isn't just age. It's the combination of historical timing, minting anomalies, extreme scarcity, and explosive demand. High-end collectors aren't guessing anymore. They're competing. Private buyers, elite auction houses, and serious investors are hunting for these coins because tangible assets with proven history are outperforming uncertainty. And coins like this are not being made again. Here's where the story shifts, and where fear quietly enters the room. Every year, thousands of rare pennies are accidentally lost, damaged, or sold for face value because someone didn't recognize what they had. Imagine unknowingly handing over a coin worth hundreds of thousands of dollars for a cup of coffee. It sounds ridiculous, until you realize it has already happened more times than anyone wants to admit. But this story is not about loss. It's about awareness. It's about timing. And it's about stepping into a position of advantage while others remain unaware. Collectors today are paying premium prices specifically for error coins because perfection is common, but imperfection is rare. Certain 1946 wheat pennies show striking errors, off-metal strikes, die cracks, doubled features, or transitional anomalies that elevate them from old coin to financial artifact. And when these features are authenticated, graded, and confirmed, the market reacts immediately. Here's another quick reset. Humor me for a second. If banks called you tomorrow and said, "We accidentally issued a $699,000 asset in 1946 and forgot to tell you," would you hang up the phone? Of course not. Yet that's essentially what history has done. The demand for these pennies is not slowing down. In fact, it's accelerating. As more Americans seek alternative stores of value and legacy assets, rare coins have surged into the spotlight. Wealthy buyers are not asking whether these coins are valuable anymore. They're asking who has them and how fast they can acquire them. And this brings us to the most important point of all: timing. We are living in a narrow window where these coins are still being discovered in private hands. Estate collections, old jars, family inheritances, coin rolls untouched for generations. But that window is closing. Every authenticated coin that enters the market reduces the remaining supply and pushes values higher. This is where excitement replaces hesitation, because knowledge changes outcomes. The moment you know what to look for, you're no longer guessing. You're evaluating. You're positioning yourself ahead of the crowd. And that's how wealth moves, from the unaware to the informed. The people who benefit most from rare coins are not professional collectors who started rich. They're ordinary individuals who recognize something extraordinary before everyone else did. One correct decision, one expert evaluation, one penny examined instead of ignored. So tonight or tomorrow or the next time you come across old coins, pause. Look again. Because that unassuming 1946 wheat penny with no mint mark may not be spare change. It may be an opportunity, one backed by history, driven by demand, and validated by the market. And the question isn't whether these coins are valuable. The market has already answered that. The real question is far more powerful and far more urgent. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small brown penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, maybe even between couch cushions. It looks ordinary, feels ordinary, and yet, if the right person recognizes it, that single coin can unlock a life-changing moment worth as much as $948,000. The question is not whether these coins exist. The real question is far more unsettling. What if you already own one and don't even know it? Today, we are diving into one of the most quietly powerful coins in U.S. history. The 1951 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny with a rare error that collectors are aggressively chasing. This is not hype. This is not theory. This is about scarcity, demand, and a market that rewards knowledge, not luck. And if you've ever held onto old pennies thinking, maybe one day, that day might already be here. Before we go any further, let me ask you something slightly uncomfortable. How many pennies have you spent without looking at them? Thousands? Tens of thousands? Don't worry, you're not alone. Most people treat pennies like noise, but serious collectors treat them like blue-chip assets. And sometimes the difference between spare change and serious wealth is nothing more than awareness. The year is 1951. America is rebuilding, growing, moving fast. Millions of pennies are struck, and most people assume they're all the same. But here's where history quietly slips on a banana peel. Some 1951 Lincoln wheat pennies were produced without a mint mark, struck in Philadelphia, and a very small number left the mint carrying distinctive errors that were never meant to exist. These were not designed. They were accidents. And in the world of coin collecting, accidents are where fortunes are born. Now, here's the twist that makes this coin especially dangerous to ignore. Unlike gold coins or flashy silver pieces, this penny doesn't scream valuable. It whispers. It blends in. It hides among common coins, which means many have been lost, spent, or destroyed over time. Scarcity didn't come from low mintage alone. Scarcity came from neglect. And neglect is what drives today's explosive demand. Let's reset your attention for a second. Quick question. If a stranger handed you a penny and said, "This could pay for your retirement," would you laugh? Or would you look twice? Exactly. That moment of hesitation is where smart money lives. Here's where excitement kicks in. High-grade examples of the 1951 no-mint mark wheat penny with verified mint errors have become one of the most aggressively pursued pieces in the modern era coin market. Why? Because demand is global, Supply is microscopic, and serious collectors don't negotiate with history. They compete with it. When authenticated and graded at elite levels, these coins have been associated with private sales and market valuations reaching as high as $948,000. Not because of hype, but because wealthy collectors understand something most people don't. You can't go back to 1951 and make more of them. The clock is permanent. Here's a little humor to keep things honest. People will argue over stocks on TV for hours, yet a coin smaller than a thumbnail quietly outperforms entire portfolios. Irony has excellent taste. The fear factor here is real. Every year, fewer of these pennies survive in top condition. Every year, more collectors enter the market. And every year, prices don't politely rise. They jump. The urgency isn't artificial. It's mathematical. When supply tightens and demand accelerates, hesitation becomes expensive. And here's the most powerful connection point of all. The people winning in this market are not miners or insiders. They're everyday Americans who took the time to look, verify, and act. Some inherited coins. Some found them in old rolls. Some rediscovered them in collections they'd forgotten. The common thread isn't luck. It's attention. Now let's bring this home. If you've ever dreamed of turning something small into something significant, this is not fantasy. This is the rare coin market functioning exactly as it was designed to. Quiet assets, patient holders, explosive upside. Imagine the feeling of realizing that a single penny you already own is now in high demand, pursued by collectors who are ready, willing, and funded. Imagine shifting from, "What if?" to, "I'm glad I checked." That emotional shift is where confidence replaces doubt. This is your pattern interrupt. Right now, while others scroll past opportunity, you're listening. While others assume pennies don't matter, you understand that knowledge compounds faster than money. And while others wait for permission, you're already ahead of the curve. The 1951 no-mint Mark Lincoln wheat penny with error isn't just a coin. It's a reminder that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it waits quietly, disguised as something ordinary, until the right person recognizes its true value. So before you dismiss that old jar of coins, before you hand down a collection without a second look, pause. Look closer. Because in today's market, awareness is currency, hesitation is costly, and history rewards those who act decisively. And if this penny is already in your possession, the question is no longer whether it's valuable. The real question is, what are you going to do with it now? Imagine opening a small drawer in your home, one you haven't touched in decades, and finding a single penny that could instantly rewrite your financial future. Not a flashy gold coin, not a rare artifact behind museum glass, just a quiet, brown 1952 Lincoln wheat penny that most people would spend without a second thought. And yet, collectors across the United States are actively searching for this coin, paying extraordinary sums for the right example. What if the most valuable asset you'll ever own is already sitting in your possession, and you don't even know it yet? This is not a story about luck. This is a story about awareness, timing, and recognizing opportunity before it disappears. Because right now, demand for rare wheat pennies is exploding, and one specific coin is at the center of serious collector attention. The 1952 1-cent wheat penny with significant mint errors. Some verified examples tied to rare error characteristics have been associated with valuations approaching $777,000 in elite collector conversations and private transactions. That number isn't just exciting, it's disruptive. It challenges everything people think they know about spare change. Act 1 begins in post-war America. In 1952, the Denver Mint was operating at full speed, producing millions of pennies for a rapidly growing economy. Speed, however, is where opportunity was born. When pressure rises and production accelerates, mistakes happen. Dies wear down. Strikes misalign. Metal flows in unexpected ways. And those mistakes, those tiny, overlooked imperfections, are exactly what today's high-end collectors crave. Because a coin with a story is always worth more than a coin without one. Now, here's the moment most people miss. Not every 1952 wheat penny is valuable. But the right one with the right error in the right condition becomes something else entirely. We're talking about dramatic die cracks, strong doubled elements, off-center strikes, unusual planchet anomalies, errors that were never supposed to leave the mint. Coins that slipped through unnoticed and entered circulation quietly, blending in for decades. That's the fear trigger right there. How many of these coins have already been spent, lost, or destroyed because no one recognized what they were holding? And before you dismiss this, let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually looked at the pennies you already own? Not glanced at them, looked at them. Because history shows us that life-changing coins are almost never discovered by professional dealers first. They're found by ordinary people who decide to check. That's not fantasy. That's documented reality. And yes, it's slightly uncomfortable because it means opportunity favors the curious, not the confident. As we move into Act 2, excitement takes over. The collector market today is not what it was 10 or 20 years ago. Wealthy buyers are moving aggressively into tangible assets. Rare coins are portable wealth. They are private. They are historical. And most importantly, they are finite. No new 1952 wheat pennies are ever being made again. Every year, fewer exist. Every year, demand increases. That imbalance is what drives prices upward. And it's happening right now. Here's where things get interesting. And this is where I want you to stay with me. A high-grade 1952 wheat penny with a major mint error doesn't just attract hobbyists. It attracts investors. It attracts legacy collectors. It attracts people who think in generations, not months. And when those buyers compete, prices don't climb slowly. They jump, suddenly, without apology. That's why values discussed in private sales and high-end auctions have reached astonishing levels. And once a benchmark sale happens, the market never looks back. Quick reality check. How many financial opportunities in your life have ever started with a penny? Exactly. That's why this one works. It disarms you. It hides in plain sight. And it rewards the person who takes 5 minutes to look closer. There's a strange kind of humor in that, isn't there? People scroll past opportunities worth hundreds of thousands of dollars because they look boring. Now Act 3 is where urgency enters the room and closes the door behind it. Because the window for discovery is shrinking. More people are learning. More coins are being pulled from circulation and locked into collections. Once that happens, they're gone. Permanently. And the longer you wait, the fewer chances remain to be the person who finds one before the market fully matures. Fear doesn't come from missing money. It comes from realizing you had the chance and ignored it. This is why serious collectors say the same thing over and over again. Check your wheat pennies now, not later. Especially the ones dated 1952 with a clear D mint mark. Especially those that look slightly strange, imperfect, or different. Those imperfections are not flaws, they're signatures. They're proof that the coin escaped the system untouched. And in a market obsessed with perfection, rarity always wins. If you're someone who believes in building wealth intelligently, quietly, and with confidence, this story should matter to you. Not because it promises overnight riches, but because it rewards decisiveness. Because it turns knowledge into leverage. And because the people who win in markets like this are the ones who act before everyone else feels comfortable doing so. So here's the final thought I'll leave you with. Somewhere in America today, a 1952 wheat penny with a powerful mint error is still sitting unnoticed. In a jar. In a drawer. In a box passed down through generations. The only question that matters is whether it's yours, and whether you'll take the time to find out before someone else does. Imagine this for a moment. You reach into a dusty drawer, maybe the same one that's held old keys, rubber bands, and forgotten change for decades. You pick up a single penny, just one. It looks ordinary, brown, small, almost invisible. And yet, what if that penny is worth $999,000? Not in theory, not in fantasy, in real money, real demand, real collectors waiting. This is not a fairy tale, and it's definitely not luck. It's knowledge. Today, you're about to discover why the 1954 wheat penny error has become one of the most hunted 1-cent coins in American history, and why missing this opportunity could mean leaving a fortune behind. Most people walk past pennies without a second thought. They drop them in jars, car cup holders, or toss them aside like they have no value at all. And that's exactly why fortunes are missed. Because wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers. The 1954 D. Lincoln Wheat penny was born during a booming post-war America, a time of rapid mint production, long shifts, and human error. And when pressure meets speed, mistakes happen. Rare mistakes, valuable mistakes. The Denver Mint produced millions of pennies that year, but a microscopic number escaped with extraordinary errors. Errors so dramatic and so desirable that elite collectors now compete aggressively to own them. Here's a question that should stop you cold for a second. What if someone already offered nearly $1 million for a coin that looks almost identical to one sitting in your home right now? Now let's talk about why this coin creates excitement and a little fear too. Because fear is real when you realize how close wealth can be and how easily it can slip away unnoticed. Certain 1954 D. Wheat pennies exhibit legendary minting errors. Dramatic double dies, off-metal strikes, misaligned dies, or wrong planchet errors that should never have left the mint. These aren't tiny flaws. These are bold, unmistakable anomalies that turn a 1-cent coin into a six-figure, and in extreme cases, headline-grabbing asset. High-grade, authenticated specimens tied to these rare errors have reached valuations reported as high as $999,000. Driven by private collector demand and scarcity, so severe that fewer examples exist than many famous gold coins. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Once collectors secure them, they disappear into vaults, sometimes for generations. Let's reset your attention for a second. Be honest. When was the last time a penny made your heart beat faster? Exactly. That's why this works. The market thrives on what most people ignore. Serious collectors, investment-grade buyers, and auction houses aren't laughing at pennies anymore. They're hunting them. They're calling estates. They're paying premiums. They're searching quietly and urgently, because demand is rising and supply is permanently capped. No mint will ever make another 1954 D. Wheat penny, and no mint can recreate a historical error. Once they're gone forever. That's not hype, that's basic economics. This brings us to the turning point, the moment where curiosity becomes action. Because knowing about rare coins isn't enough. Recognition is everything. The individuals who benefit from these discoveries are not gamblers. They are observers. They slow down. They examine details. They understand that wealth favors the prepared eye. If you own inherited coins, old rolls, coffee cans filled decades ago, or collections passed down and forgotten, you are sitting on potential. And potential is powerful when paired with urgency. Every year, more of these rare error pennies are locked away, certified, and removed from the open market. The window doesn't slam shut overnight. It narrows quietly, and then suddenly, it's gone. Here's a thought that might make you smile, and maybe feel a little uneasy too. Imagine explaining to your family that the penny you once ignored could have paid off a home, funded a dream retirement, or changed your lifestyle entirely. Funny? Maybe. Painful? Absolutely. This is why awareness matters. This is why action matters now. The collectors driving this market are decisive, educated, and well-funded. They are not waiting. And when competition heats up, prices don't drift upward. They jump. By now you can feel it, that mix of excitement and urgency. That's not an accident. That's the sound of opportunity knocking softly. The 1954 D. Wheat penny error represents more than a rare coin. It represents a shift in thinking. A reminder that wealth is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's copper-colored, 1 inch wide, and hiding in plain sight. The people who win in this market are not chasing trends. They're recognizing history, scarcity, and demand converging at the perfect moment. So before you dismiss this as just another coin story, pause. Look again. Check what you already own. Because the greatest regret in collecting isn't buying the wrong coin. It's realizing too late that you already had the right one. And in today's high-demand market, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary can be a single penny, with the right year, the right mint mark, and the right mistake. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small copper coin is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, maybe even your pocket. It doesn't shine. It doesn't beg for attention. And yet, if you knew what to look for, it could represent a life-changing moment worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. What if I told you that one ordinary-looking 1955 wheat penny has reached a market value as high as $658,000? Not a gold bar, not a stock portfolio, a single penny. And here's the unsettling question most people never ask themselves. What if you already owned one and didn't know it? This story begins in 1955, a year remembered for booming post-war America, chrome-covered cars, and optimism everywhere. The Denver Mint was working at full speed, producing millions of Lincoln wheat pennies for everyday circulation. Pennies meant to be spent, forgotten, and lost. But in that rush, something extraordinary happened. A rare and powerful minting error slipped through, an error so distinctive, so sought after, that decades later it would become one of the most aggressively hunted coins in American numismatic history. This is not the kind of mistake that weakens a coin. This is the kind of mistake that turns copper into legacy. Now pause for a second, be honest with yourself. How many pennies have you ignored in your life? Thousands? Tens of thousands? Most people wouldn't bend down to pick one up. Funny, isn't it? The same coin people leave on sidewalks can be the very thing serious collectors, investors, and auction houses compete fiercely to own. That irony alone should reset how you see every old penny from this point forward. What makes the 1955 wheat penny error so powerful is not just rarity, it's recognition. This coin sits in the elite category of errors that seasoned collectors instantly respect. The demand does not need to be manufactured. It already exists. High-grade examples with clear, authenticated error characteristics have entered legendary status, commanding six-figure prices when they surface. And here's where excitement turns into urgency. These coins are not being made again. Every year, more disappear into private collections, vaults, and estates, tightening supply while demand only grows stronger. Think about it this way. Real wealth often hides in places most people overlook. While the average person scrolls past opportunity, the informed few quietly position themselves ahead of the crowd. That's exactly what's happening in the rare penny market right now. Collectors aged 30 to 65, people who understand value, timing, and legacy, are actively searching for coins like this. They're not guessing. They're not gambling. They're acquiring tangible history with proven appreciation. And let me ask you something slightly uncomfortable but important. If a penny worth hundreds of thousands of dollars passed through your hands today, would you recognize it? Or would you spend it for 1 cent? That question alone separates those who stay curious from those who stay broke. Knowledge is not optional in this market. It's the entry ticket. As awareness spreads, the market heats up. Auction houses don't chase average coins. They chase stories, scarcity, and condition, and the 1955 wheat penny error delivers all three. When one appears, it doesn't whisper. It announces itself. Phones ring. Bidders prepare. Prices climb. And once the hammer falls, another chapter closes, making the remaining examples even more desirable. This is why timing matters. Waiting for someday is how opportunities pass quietly into someone else's hands. The people who win in this space don't wait for permission. They inspect, they verify, they authenticate, and they act. They understand that a single coin can outperform years of saving when knowledge meets decisiveness. So here's the real takeaway. And it's simple but powerful. The wealth you're looking for doesn't always come in the form you expect. Sometimes it's copper. Sometimes it's old. Sometimes it's been sitting with you for decades, unnoticed. The 1955 wheat penny error isn't just a coin. It's a reminder that extraordinary value often hides in ordinary places, waiting for someone informed enough to recognize it. Before you dismiss your old pennies again, remember this. History rewards those who pay attention. And the next life-changing discovery in the rare coin world doesn't announce itself with noise. It waits quietly until the right person finally looks closely enough. What if I told you that a single penny, yes, the kind you've probably ignored, spent, or tossed into a jar, has been powerful enough to rewrite lives, fund retirements, and quietly move hands for amounts approaching $877,000? Pause for a moment and let that sink in. 1 cent. Now ask yourself an uncomfortable question. What if that penny already passed through your fingers and you never noticed? That thought alone creates a quiet fear, and today we turn that fear into clarity, excitement, and opportunity. This is the story of the 1955 United States 1-cent wheat penny with no mint mark, a coin born in ordinary times but destined for extraordinary demand. In the mid-1950s, America was rebuilding, families were growing, and loose change was nothing more than pocket noise. But behind the scenes at the Philadelphia Mint, something extraordinary happened. A rare and dramatic striking anomaly created one of the most legendary coin errors in U.S. history. An error so visually powerful that even non-collectors can see it instantly. And yet, millions of Americans unknowingly spent these coins, unaware they were holding the kind of asset people now search for with urgency. Now let me ask you something, be honest. When was the last time you truly looked at a penny? Not glanced at it, but studied it. If your answer is, I don't remember, you're not alone. And that's exactly why this coin has become so valuable. Scarcity doesn't always come from how few were made. It comes from how many were lost. Fear creeps in here for a reason, because once you understand this, you realize how easy it was to miss, and how costly that oversight can be. This brings us into the first act of our story, the awakening. Collectors began noticing something strange decades ago. The date 1955 appeared doubled. Bold, unmistakable, almost shouting from the surface of the coin. The words "liberty" and "in God we trust" didn't whisper. They echoed. This wasn't wear, damage, or imagination. This was a genuine mint error, created before the coin ever entered circulation. And because there is no mint mark, it traces directly back to Philadelphia, cementing its authenticity and historical weight. Here's a quick pattern interrupt for you. Imagine explaining to your younger self that a penny could be worth more than a luxury home. You'd probably laugh, right? And yet, here we are. Funny how reality sometimes outperforms fiction. As word spread, the second act began. The realization of power. Serious collectors, investors, and auction houses recognized that the 1955 wheat penny error wasn't just rare. It was iconic. Demand surged. Prices climbed. Elite examples, preserved in extraordinary condition, began commanding staggering figures. Headlines emerged. Private sales whispered about amounts approaching $877,000 for top-tier specimens. Not average coins, not damaged ones, but museum-quality survivors, the kind that redefine what pocket change really means. This is where excitement takes over, because the market doesn't reward noise, it rewards knowledge. The wheat penny series already holds emotional value for Americans. It represents heritage, resilience, and legacy. Combine that emotional connection with a visually dramatic error and verified scarcity, and you don't just have a coin, you have a financial artifact in extreme demand. The kind buyers wait years for. The kind sellers control when they understand what they own. Now let's reset your attention with a simple question. If someone offered you $10,000 for a coin today, would you sell it immediately, or would you wonder what they know that you don't? Exactly. Information is leverage. Which brings us to the third and final act, the moment of decision. Right now, across the United States, people are opening old drawers, inherited boxes, and forgotten collections. Why? Because the market is watching. High-net-worth collectors are actively seeking standout error coins. Auction houses are competing for consignments. And the supply of authentic 1955 wheat penny errors is fixed forever. No more will ever be made. That creates urgency, not panic, but intelligent action. This is not about luck. It's about awareness. The individuals who benefit most from this market aren't gamblers. They're informed owners who recognize demand before they surrender value. Selling at the right time to the right buyer under the right conditions can change outcomes dramatically. And yes, this is how ordinary people step quietly into extraordinary wealth stories, without hype, without noise, just precision. Let me add one more interruption. If pennies were truly worthless, no one would be hunting them with magnifying glasses and five-figure checks. Think about that. The truth is simple and powerful. The 1955 no-mint mark wheat penny error has become a symbol of hidden opportunity. It rewards those who pay attention, who act decisively, and who refuse to underestimate small things. Whether you already own one or are just beginning to look, the window of opportunity is defined by knowledge and timing. And those who understand this don't rush. They position themselves. So here's the final thought to leave you with. Wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it waits quietly, disguised as something familiar, overlooked, and underestimated. And when the world finally wakes up to its value, only those who recognized it early are in control. Imagine this for a moment. You're holding a simple brown penny. No shine, no flash, just a quiet, ordinary coin that has been sitting in a jar, a drawer, or maybe even your pocket for decades. Most people would toss it aside without a second thought. But what if that one penny, yes, a single 1957 no-mint mark wheat penny, could be worth nearly $900,000 today? What if the difference between your current financial reality and a dramatically wealthier future was hiding in plain sight? Before you dismiss that idea, ask yourself this honest question. How many pennies have you already ignored in your lifetime? This is where our story begins, and this is where Act 1 opens, with curiosity, disbelief, and a quiet warning. Because history has a habit of rewarding those who pay attention and punishing those who don't. The 1957 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny was struck in Philadelphia during the final chapter of the wheat cent era. Millions were produced, yes, but perfection was never guaranteed. Inside that massive production run, rare minting errors slipped through. Errors so subtle that most people never noticed them. Errors so valuable today that collectors and investors actively hunt for them with urgency and intensity. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Some of these coins were spent for face value, lost forever, simply because the owner didn't know what they were holding. Now pause for a second, quick reality check. If you found out that your house key could also open a vault filled with cash, would you ignore it? Of course not. Yet that's exactly what many people do with old pennies every single day. The fear here isn't missing out on a lottery ticket. The fear is already having the winning ticket and never realizing it. We move deeper into Act 1. Let's talk about what makes the 1957 no-mint mark wheat penny so powerful in today's market. This coin represents the end of an era, the final breath before the Lincoln Memorial design replaced the wheat ears in 1959. Collectors crave historical turning points, and investors chase scarcity. When those two forces collide, prices explode. Certain documented error varieties from this year, such as dramatic double dies, off-center strikes, and planchet anomalies, have stunned the coin world. In elite condition, with the right error and professional certification, market values have surged to levels that sound unreal to the untrained ear, with reported sales and private transactions approaching $897,000. Because Act 2 is where excitement takes over and the story shifts from history to opportunity. Right now, across the United States, serious collectors, high-net-worth investors, and auction houses are aggressively searching for rare Lincoln wheat cents. Demand is not slowing down. It's accelerating. Why? Because tangible assets with proven historical value are becoming safer, smarter stores of wealth in uncertain times. Stocks fluctuate. Digital assets rise and fall overnight. But a rare, authenticated error coin from America's past? That's legacy wealth. That's portable history. That's money you can hold in your hand. Here's a fun question to reset your attention for a moment. Be honest. If a penny could pay off your mortgage, would you finally stop calling it just a penny? Exactly. What makes the 1957 no-mint mark wheat penny especially thrilling is that it doesn't look special at first glance. There's no mint mark screaming for attention. No obvious signal begging you to notice it. That's why so many are still out there, undiscovered, waiting in collections, inherited boxes, and forgotten jars. The opportunity isn't gone. It's hiding. And the people who win in this space aren't the loudest. They're the most informed. As Act 2 continues, the urgency becomes real. The supply of truly rare error coins is fixed forever. No more will ever be made. Every year, more of them are locked away in private collections, museums, and long-term investment portfolios. That means fewer opportunities for everyday people to cash in. Prices don't rise because of hype. They rise because demand keeps climbing while supply disappears. This is basic economics, and it favors those who act early, not those who hesitate. Now let's talk about lifestyle for a moment, because wealth isn't just about numbers. It's about freedom. Imagine selling a single coin and using that money to eliminate debt, invest intelligently, travel without stress, or build generational security for your family. This isn't fantasy. This has already happened. The only difference between those success stories and everyone else is awareness and action. And here comes another quick pattern interrupt. Humor me for a second. If someone offered you $897,000 for a penny, would you negotiate or faint first? Either way, you'd be glad you didn't spend it on bubblegum.as. We transition into Act 3. The message sharpens. This is the moment of decision. Knowledge without action is regret in disguise. If you have old pennies, especially 1957 wheat cents with no mint mark, the smartest move is not guessing, cleaning, or dismissing them. The smartest move is evaluation, authentication, and positioning yourself where demand already exists. The market rewards preparation, not luck. The people watching this video fall into two groups. Those who will keep scrolling, telling themselves this doesn't apply to them, and those who will take a closer look at what they already own, realizing that wealth doesn't always arrive loudly, it often whispers. The second group understands that high-demand assets don't stay undervalued forever. When the wider public catches on, the window narrows. This isn't about greed. It's about respect, for history, for opportunity, and for your own future. The 1957 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny is more than a coin. It's a reminder that extraordinary value often hides inside ordinary objects. And the market doesn't reward those who wait for permission. It rewards those who recognize value before the crowd does. So before you move on with your day, ask yourself one final question. What if the smallest thing you own turns out to be the most powerful financial decision you ever make? Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America right now, a small brown penny is sitting quietly in a jar, a drawer, or an old coffee can in the garage. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't beg for attention. And yet, if you knew what you were looking at, your heart might skip a beat, because that single coin could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Today, we're uncovering the astonishing story of the 1958 Lincoln wheat penny error, a coin so rare, so fiercely hunted, that collectors whisper about it the way investors talk about blue-chip assets. And here's the real question. What if the most valuable thing you own isn't your house, your car, or your stock portfolio, but a penny you've ignored for decades? This is not a fairy tale. This is America's hidden money. In 1958, at the Denver Mint, millions of wheat pennies were struck as the country stood on the edge of a new era. It was the final year of the wheat reverse design, a closing chapter in U.S. coinage history. But during that moment, something extraordinary happened. A small number of pennies were struck with a powerful minting error, an error so dramatic that it transformed a 1-cent coin into a 6-figure prize. These are not ordinary mistakes. These are the kinds of errors that make seasoned collectors lean forward, lower their voices, and say, "This is the one." Now let's pause for a second, because this is where people usually laugh. A penny? Really? That's the moment most folks miss their opportunity. Because while some people were tossing change into vending machines, others were quietly building wealth by recognizing rarity before the crowd did. The 1958 wheat penny error is one of the most aggressively pursued coins in the market today, with documented valuations reported as high as $798,000 for elite specimens. That's not luck. That's knowledge meeting timing. Here's where the emotion kicks in. Fear first. Fear of missing out. Fear that you've already handled one of these coins and spent it without realizing what it was. Fear that the opportunity is slipping away while others are cashing in. Because the truth is brutal and beautiful at the same time, these coins are not being made anymore. Every year, more are locked away in private collections. Every year, fewer remain in circulation. And every year, demand doesn't cool down, it heats up. But then comes the excitement. Because this is one of the rare moments in life where the barrier to entry is laughably small. You don't need a finance degree. You don't need insider access. You need awareness. A 1958 wheat penny. A D mint mark. A powerful error that separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. Suddenly, that old jar of coins doesn't feel so boring anymore. Does it? It feels like a treasure chest. And let's be honest, how often does life offer you a second chance at something like that? As we move deeper into this story, something important happens. You start seeing coins differently. You realize this isn't about pennies, it's about positioning. Smart people have always known that wealth often hides in plain sight. Real money doesn't shout. It whispers. And the collectors who dominate this market aren't chasing hype. They're chasing scarcity. That's why the 1958 D-Wheat penny error sits in a category of its own. It represents history, finality, and rarity all rolled into one small copper disc. Now here's a question that resets everything. If someone offered you a potential path to six-figure wealth, but disguised it as pocket change, would you pay attention, or would you walk right past it? Most people walk past it. That's why this opportunity still exists. And that's why those who act decisively are the ones who win. Today, the market for elite Lincoln wheat pennies is stronger than ever. Demand is global. Buyers are serious. And top-tier error coins are treated less like collectibles and more like legacy assets. Coins like the 1958 D error don't just sell, they're competed for. When one surfaces, it creates urgency, excitement, and momentum. And the owners? They're not guessing. They're positioning themselves for a life with more freedom, more options, and more control. So as we reach the end of the story, the message becomes crystal clear. This is not about chasing millions blindly. This is about recognizing value before everyone else does. It's about understanding that America's greatest financial surprises are sometimes hiding in the smallest places. That penny you've overlooked for years? It might be the most important financial object you've ever owned. The only real risk here isn't checking your coins. The real risk is ignoring them. Because opportunities like the 1958 D Lincoln wheat penny error don't announce themselves twice. They reward the curious, the prepared, and the decisive. And if you're watching this right now, that means you're already one step ahead.